Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Bon après-midi. Bienvenue à la session d'information du Collège Dawson à propos du programme indépendant de développement de jeux vidéo. Pour le reste de la session, les présentations se feront en anglais, mais n'hésitez pas là, si vous avez des questions à répondre, à questionner en français, en anglais. Je vais regarder le chat et le Q&A à travers la plateforme Pine. Donc, n'hésitez pas, en fait, s'il y a quoi que ce soit, je peux répondre dans les deux langues sans aucun problème. Welcome everyone to the information session about the Independent Video Game Design Program at Dawson College. My name is Kaermack Polewska. I'm the program coordinator. I'm one of the teachers as well in the program. And essentially, I'm here with you today to present you the program. So what it is, what is our mission. Our mission is a bit different and specific than other schools. And specifically, we want to provide you with an education that is specifically suited for indie game development and the reality, especially in Montreal. So just to give you an idea of my background, I've been a teacher for nowadays, I think 5 years at Dawson College, and the program coordinator. I've also been really implicated in helping the growth of new developers. So I've been working with the Global Game Jam. I've created the Montpellier Gacha in France, which is another game jam. I help with the Montreal Game Jam here, and I'm also part of the organization of the Montreal Independent Game Awards, which is closely an acronym close to the Mega itself. If you were there last year, we were actually present and collaborating with the Mega. In terms of my professional background, I've worked on at Ubisoft for over 6 years. I worked on Watch Dogs 2 for Honor as a game designer, and then after that, I went towards VR development. And nowadays, I'm actually starting my own studio. So I am preaching what I'm teaching as well, and starting on myself this amazing indie adventure. Um, so as always, I'm happy to talk about the program. Um, One thing that is important, I think, to mention about the program is why we exist. A lot of programs will be specializing in different disciplines, whether art, design, programming, or marketing, and those are great for larger studios. But we want to provide something different. If we look at the Canadian gaming industry data, so it's a study from the Entertainment Software Association of Canada. I realize we actually have the same numbers with the Mega, so it's I guess it's good. We're having the same sources on that. If we look at it in 2019, there's been a 16% increase since 2017, 692 studios active, 4.5 billions added to Canada's GDP annually, a 20% increase as well. So the industry, as you might know, of course, is booming, right? That means directly 48,000 direct and indirect jobs, and 27,000 jobs that are directly employed. So the difference being directly employed are actual developers or people that are working on game titles, whereas the 48,000 is more about the whole ecosystem, right? Of the other developers and services that helps and support the growth of the industry, basically. So all in Quebec, again, the same data from 2019, we have 218 companies actually across Quebec, which is amazing. And I think the Guild, La Guilde du Québec is also part of helping growing this ecosystem, and nowadays with also Projet Synthèse, helping support also the educational part. It's really interesting to see it grow as big as it is. As you can see, in terms of the number of studios, there's 190 small studios, 82 medium, 17 large studios. What we want to aim specifically is the small studios. We all know about the large studios. You all know the names. I probably miss even some of them nowadays. There's a lot are actually coming back to Montreal, newer ones as well. But Behavior, Warner Brother Games, Montreal, Ubisoft Montreal, Bethesda, Gameloft, Square Enix, EA Motives, Eidos Montreal, all large studios. We all know them. Large titles, large games, and of course, blockbusters, right? Um, this is great and it's part of our ecosystem, but it's not necessarily our mission to be supporting the our students towards this direction. Of course, some students actually go towards AAA, but what we want to support is the booming indie studio ecosystem. I could not even list them all here. It will be ridiculous. If you want to go on the Guild website, you'll see there's hundreds of studios across Quebec, and just in Montreal, the industry itself is just booming. So the indie industry also brings its own set of challenge, and this is why we're here. But it also brings to the table something new, something different. It's not blockbusters, it's smaller, more creative games that can take more risk actually because also of lower budgets and having smaller teams. So there's advantages to also go indie in that sense. And what we want to do is provide really the ecosystem with the program to help support that. Just a bit of history before we go further. In terms of the rise of indies, indies have been there since the very beginning of the game industry. Uh, it can be debated. There's different sources of the matter, but Space War, the first video game ever developed, was not developed as a commercial product, but rather as an experiment by a few scientists working on different display technologies. Um, but towards the 1980s, even though there was a few companies like Atari that was employing developers specifically for their companies, it was still individual developers for the most part. People were programming their own games. They were also designing and even creating the art. And a lot of people were also shipping their games through the mail. Actually, Ubisoft started that way by sending copies of their game through the mail to whoever was interested through what we also know as sharewares. And a tradition that continued through the 1990s. But of course, at this point, the industry got a bit more structured, especially with the rise of Nintendo. But hobbyists were still present. Towards the 2000s, the Steam platform got released. In 2004, Cave Story was released in Japan, which was a big hit for indie games. And really by 2008, we saw the whole the whole game change. Uh, Castle Crasher and Braid came to the market and really gave a different perspective on what indie games are. It's not just some people working in their basement or their garage making whatever. It's actually artists and creators developing products that comes from the arts, games that they wants to bring to life and to peoples across the world. So of course, Steam helped a lot on that, and essentially, a lot of experts will tell that this is essentially the start of the mass indie exodus. With those games, with the distribution of digital games, it started to be something much more approachable, much more accessible for everyone. Um, so this is where we're trying to go forward, especially. In terms of the advantage of going indie, of course, there is some of it, and of course, I go after with the challenges of it. Uh, First one, I think that is the most important, is the creative freedom and the true artistic vision. Working on smaller teams with either it's your friends or just people that shares the same vision as you allows you to keep the the vision intact. The more people you add to a team, the more it becomes political and more it adds also complexities of communication. So being a smaller studio with some of your colleagues is actually a good thing in that sense, and that's a good advantage of being indie. It also allows you to take a much more risk and innovate. Again, you're not a big studio; you can turn on a dime in terms of the decisions you're making, in terms of reactions, in terms of prototyping. Also, the budgets are much lower, and especially in Canada, we have good funding programs such as the CMF, the Canadian Media Fund, that helps also innovation and that helps creators to try new things. There's also non-dependence and established IPs. We're not talking, there is franchise in indies, but it's much easier to just start a new idea, spin something that is completely new that wasn't developed before. So the dependence on IPs that is part of AAA's is not very much prevalent for the indies as well. It also gives you a flexibility to adapt to the platform business model, also because you are developing probably the games on shorter schedules. You can react much faster with your team. And but this is more specific to Montreal. I think one of the biggest advantages the wide pool of talented, like-minded collaborators you can find. Gameplay space is a great co-working space. I know there's now Indie Asylum that it's its own co-working space. There's a lot of communities in Montreal. There's Flop as well. There's Gang de Dev. There's of course La Guilde. All great people, developers, and talents in which you can actually talk with. And especially in Montreal, it's really a great place to be in the ecosystem is really really there to help you for that. And something else also that is mostly special to Canada is the availability of financial programs. Of course, Quebec also has its own programs as well, but with the CMF, with the tax credits as well from Quebec, all of those programs helps support the indie ecosystem without as much risk financially as there will be otherwise. But we cannot go forward without talking about the challenge of going indie. I will say indie is not for everyone. Specifically, it's of course you need to do everything by yourself. That means that you're not just a designer, you're not just a programmer or an artist. You'll be wearing many hats, you'll have many challenges. And if it's the first time you're building your company, of course, there's been a lot of panels today actually on that question, but how can you support your studio and really progress forward? There is a lot of unknowns. So it can be difficult, it can be daunting, but at the same time, for some people, for me at least, I find it exciting. I think this is the good attitude to take with that. It's an exciting challenge and adventure that propels us forward. Like I mentioned, also there's a sudden need to wear many hats. You cannot just be a designer, a programmer, an artist, and this is what we want to address specifically with our program. You need to be wearing many hats. You need to be at least handling two disciplines. I will say probably one that is main and another one that is secondary when you're going indie. But teams are smaller. But in terms of talent, it doesn't mean that you have less talent. It just means you need to do a lot more. It can be a challenge for some people, definitely. It does requires also entrepreneurial skills, something else that we cover with our program. You're not just developing your game, you're also managing your company. You're also managing the marketing side of it, the social medias, the platform, supporting your game throughout its production and post-production as well. All of this comes in question when you're in indie. It's especially important to know how to behave properly, I will say, in the public scene with your projects. It also requires, of course, a big network of like-minded people. If you're alone with your team, you will need to pull some resources. You will need to have a lot more contacts than if you're within a structure that is already already maintained, such as the big studios. You'll have to ask help, ask services, maybe from other friends and developers. But like I mentioned, at least in Montreal, it's something that is already common between the indie studios. And finally, of course, it does require significant savings or outside funding. If you cannot get funding right away, of course, you'll need to save a little bit to start your own projects. CMF does ask you to front a part of the money you'll be asking as well. So there's always the seed money that is in question, and how can you provide it? So all those questions, of course, are challenges, but we're trying to solve it ideally with the program. So our solution is the IVGD program. It's been running for quite some years now, and really the goal is really to support you through your career in indie development. Whether you want to develop your own studio or whether you want to actually integrate the indie scene, those are still hand in hand part of the philosophy that we have. Of course, starting your own studio is another complete challenge. It's another level of difficulty, of course, and it's something that we will cover and will help you, especially if you're forward with this during the program. But otherwise, generally, we adapt ourselves to the needs of the students. Sometimes they want to specialize a bit more. We try to help them in that way, or we try to support them as well within well, the development of their company. So in terms of our solution specifically, there's 4 disciplines that we cover across the 2 years program. So like I said, other programs will be focusing sometimes on specific disciplines while we are going the different approach. It's an integrated approach, which is a more horizontal approach where we're covering a lot of things. We're covering all the bases and we're asking you to actually specialize if that's something that you desire. But at the very least, you'll be able to learn about game design, know how to program your own games, know about the pipeline of digital art, how to do 3D animation, 3D modeling. We'll do a bit of pixel art as well. And finally, that is the most important, I feel, if you're starting a company, entrepreneurship and marketing. We have classes for that. So every semester you'll have those 4 disciplines that will be covered across the 2 years within the program, really to help you support this transition towards indie development. Whether you already have experience or not, we have both profiles in the program. Sometimes it's people that comes from a comic book artist background that wants to do games. Sometimes it's programmers or artists or designers actually from other fields, and they want to go into video games. So that happens a lot that we will be there to bridge the gap of knowledge for those people. And if you're someone that is actually wondering what you want to do in video game development, and you're just like starting college, it's actually also a good alternative to other programs. If you're not sure yet in which direction you want to go, you'll be able to explore all those 4 disciplines. And of course, after that, if you want to continue, let's say you want to do computer science at university, the background that you have will be super useful to your career also in game development. In terms of the program information, so as I talked a bit about it, but it's a full-time evening program. So it's an AEC program, and the courses are given during the evening. So for a total of 900 hours during 4 semesters. What's really great, I feel, about our structure is that a lot of students can actually work during the day, keep their job, keep their revenues, and be able to continue the program during the evening. So we all teach at night with all the teachers, and essentially the students are generally working on their projects on the weekends or through the lab workshops that we have in class. Class generally start at 6:30 p.m. 4 nights a week from Monday to Thursday. If there's an issue, sometimes we push it on Friday, but we try avoid that. Um, the next semester will be starting in August 2021. You'll need to have a portfolio, of course, for getting into the program. The application deadline is to be determined. It's still early in the year to talk about that. And of course, the classes will be given at Dawson College in Montreal. If, again, we're still having issues with the pandemic, we'll see what we can do. Right now, we are online with the students. We're having a hub with the students, and there's not much issues actually covering the programs regardless. Because, of course, every software, everything that we're using is digital, and we're keeping close contact. So there's no recorded classes. Everything is live with the students every day to ensure that we can keep the same quality of education for them. Something important to note also is that there's no tuition fees for Quebec residents and French students with valid Canadian permit. So this can be interesting as well if your revenues are can be a problem, or if you're looking at different alternatives. We are a fully public program, and we're proud of the education we can provide without necessitating the private structure. Um, in terms of the term breakdown, so like I mentioned, there's 4 terms during the program. So term 1 is really about introduction, right? I will say in general, the first year of the program is really built as a sandbox for you. Some of you might have experience as, again, as I mentioned, designer, programmer, artist, but not in all of those fields. The same applies if you never done any of this as well. You need time to define yourself as a creator. It's extremely important, especially for indies. So term one and term two are really about experimentation, introducing concepts. But regardless, you're still going to be working and developing your games, actually. Um, in terms of the design course for the first term, it's a non-digital course. So that means because you might not be a programmer already, so we don't want you to jump right away in the game engine and do your games there if you don't know how to program, of course. So it's mostly focused towards board game design. So we'll be doing board games together, and we'll be learning about the game design methodologies and topics together. Even though it's not video games, it's still very much applicable. Scripting one really starts from scratch in terms of programming. If you never touched programming before, this is a great course for you. If you've done it before and you're a full-fledged programmer, we can actually discuss and waive the class for you and give you the credits. It's actually possible if you have a diploma in programming specifically. But really, we'll cover all the bases, how to write your variables, the functions, code. We'll do some example games, simple games, of course, to really start working in the engine. Specifically with the program, we're using Unity 3D. So we'll be using C# across the program. Intro to video game art is again an introduction to 3D modeling, especially. We are using right now Maya LT. It's I will say, part of the Autodesk family. So we were using Autodesk 3ds Max before, but it's a bit of a costly license if you're actually going indie. So we wanted to go for with something that is more suitable for indie development. So we decided to go with Maya LT, which is much more approachable and actually designed for indie development. So you'll be learning about texturing, 3D modeling, a bit about animation, particle effects, and such. But really, again, it's introduction. You're going to be discovering what can be done in Maya and also in the integration with Unity. The last class is called Intro to Video Gaming. It's a bit of a wider class, but it's still part of the marketing/entrepreneurial track. We'll be talking essentially about the gaming industry, about some concepts that might not be known to you, production processes as well. How do we handle the production, for example? Um, so it's really a course that really puts you back on the level that we expect you to be as a developer, right? So if you don't have experience, you never did games before, this is a perfect class for you to get back on track and know the lingo of game development, let's say. Term two is prototyping. So like I said, first year is really a sandbox. So while we're doing introductions in the first term, term two is really about prototyping your ideas. So at this point, really, you'll actually be doing a lot of game projects. They won't be full-fledged, but we'll be working on concepts with you, especially in the game and level design prototyping class. In this class, you'll be developing 3 games, an FPS, a horror game, you'll be also, I think there's also the labyrinth game that is part of the first project that you're going to bridge towards it. And sometimes I know the teacher changes the types of games, so it's interesting to discover them. So you'll be doing that all across the term. Scripting two, it's specifically about game engine features. So the first course is about knowing how to program. Of course, you'll be touching Unity and we'll be doing a few scripts. But really, scripting two is about the tools that you can implement in Unity in your games, right? So we'll be actually doing a project from scratch from the beginning of the semester to the end, and you'll be supported through it. So you'll learn really how to integrate all the nitty-gritty stuff about technical development. It's not necessarily just tied to programming specifically, but also the technical side of game development. Game asset creation and management is the second class, of course, of the art track. You'll be doing a bit more animation, a bit more rigging. So we'll be going much more in depth with some 3D modeling concepts. Uh, we'll be doing also pixel art. There will be a bit of asset creation for like modular systems and such that really helps you boost your production value when you're working. Think a bit of like Lego blocks, right? So it's really there to help you understand the pipeline in terms of production. Um, and finally, game promotion and marketing is a course specifically designed to help you actually think about how you can promote your games. So we're going to be talking about social medias, of course. We're going to talk about video game trailers. How can we build those? What is interesting? You'll be pitching your games as well, so we'll be working on this as well. So it's really focused on your games, right? On putting it on the public light in the right way, and talking about all the promotional way you can actually pursue with your project. Term 3 is pre-production. So second year is essentially where we're restructuring your knowledge. We're putting you back to this production mindset. You're going to go to the industry in about a year at this point, and we really want you to step up and understand what is the reality of game development. There's a lot of challenges. And of course, it's important to understand the methodology in which other developers are working already in the industry. So for gaming level pre-production class, this is the design class. We'll be going in rational game design, which is a design method really that helps you build a difficulty progression in your games. So we'll be covering that. We'll be covering also methodologies of level design, uh, motivational um, psychological profiles that helps you um, really identify the players that you want your game to be played with, and also motivate them to stay in the game and such. So it's really a bit of psychology, a bit of actually theory from the industry, and our own experience, of course. And especially there in that class, there will be two projects. So one special project that will have weird constraints that will really challenge your creativity, and the second project is actually the prototype for your final project. So we'll be covering that for term 4, but you'll be working on your final project right away on term 3, so you can start preparing it and really start up to the pre-production of it. Scripting 3 is technical architecture. So we're going to talk about what we call design patterns and really um, programming architecture that really helps support your games properly. So we'll be talking about optimization. We'll be talking about, of course, singletons and other concepts in programming that are a bit more advanced if you just started programming, really to help support your games, not just as that prototype level, but really at a production level in terms of scripting. Art pre-production class is, again, mostly suited to the methodologies of the industry. We'll be doing more modular design. We'll be pushing also with Substance Painter and other texture system supported with AI and such, really to gives you the proper tools to get into the industry. We also have a mocap suit, which is really nice, that we do a bit of mocap and try it out with the students. Of course, right now we cannot do it, which is unfortunate. But as soon as we come back, we'll be doing more also in this class. And the final class, Entrepreneurship 1, Game Industry, is really about a mock-up company, right? You're going to be trying to develop one specific game and push it to the market. We'll be talking about funding. We'll be talking about, of course, Kickstarter is part of it. We'll be talking about marketing, how to support your game, the social medias aspect, the community development and such. It's really to help you really try it, but in a safe environment first. And finally, term 4, I realized the title is not updated. It should say term 4 production. Sorry about that. It's essentially two big class. So as you see with the beautiful gradient that goes from red, orange, and blue, the video game production project actually encompass design, art, and programming. So you'll be working on that final project for 3 days out of the week. And one of the day you'll be working on entrepreneurship too, which is actually about your game project. So you'll be able to try to put it to the market, set up a funding platform if that's what you desire, work on the website platform, and really try to push your project to the market if that's what you want to do. So those two classes will be hand in hand together. And for a lot of students, it's actually the most important term, right? A lot of students want to come to the program to develop their own games. And this is really where we provide you our own expertise. In the other classes, we're teaching a lot of the time, of course. But in this particular term, we're here mostly as mentors. We're there to support your projects from the very beginning of the semester until the end, and even help you propel yourself, especially if you want to start your own company. We'll try to help you pull out our own resources and contacts and try to see if we can make it happen for you. Um, so no matter if you want to start your company or you want actually to just integrate the indie community and work mostly on your portfolio, both are possible, and we'll really be there to help you in, I will say, in a more organic way. Uh, so we'll be really answering the needs of all of your different projects. As mentioned before, there is mandatory portfolio requirements if you want to get into the program. So there's, well, a part of the portfolio that is mandatory, the other part that is optional. In terms of the mandatory pieces, we're asking you at least one of the design document, a level design, or a pitch document. Ideally, the most you can send us, the better, right? If you can send us at least one design document, one level design, and one pitch document, it will be great. But we understand sometimes with time limitation, and especially if you're working, if you're sending us one of those documents that is really well made, it's also acceptable. So for game design documents specifically, we're talking about an exploration of a game system, the rules and mechanics that are completely created by you. So we're not talking about reverse engineering and analyzing a game that is already produced. We want you to develop a new game system, a new system of rule for either a board game or a video game, and develop the mechanics. Uh, in terms of level design, same thing applies, but it's mostly going to be screenshots of videos of a level that you built, including your intention. So the in Unity, Unreal, GameMaker, etc. Of course, this should be supported by an intention. If you just send us a level design document, it's not necessarily enough for us to define if it's actually answering what you wanted as an intention as a designer. So we want you to explain also what was your goal. And also you can send a pitch document, so a creative and well-presented proposal for a game. It can be in a PowerPoint also, if you prefer, or PDF with like images and mockups and such. And generally, this is the base that we're asking. Like I mentioned, you may not have artistic or technical skills already, and that's okay. We understand. You'll have plenty of time in the program also to develop those. Um, but regardless of that, you need to work those on creative and unique ideas that can be done, especially in the scenario. In terms of accepted formats, Word documents, PDF, PowerPoints, pictures, videos, game builds are fine. We're not super strict about it as long as we can see it properly. If you send us your Unity project or your 3D file itself, we might not have the proper version to open it, and this is not acceptable as a format. So we prefer if you just send us like a picture, video, or a build itself. In terms of the optional portfolio requirements, again, if you have any artistic or technical aptitudes, we really recommend you to send us something to show your skills. So illustrations, concept art, 3D models, 3D animations, 3D pixel art, game assets, music, etc. If you're, I didn't wrote it there, but if you're also a writer and you have a script, for example, this is also part of that. We want you to send it to us so that we can take a look at it. And in the technical side, well, if you develop any games, right? If you worked on games yourself that you program or game mods that you worked on, we really want to see that as well. Then again, accepted formats are the same. Just send us a game build if it's a technical project, and we'll be happy to play. In terms of the portfolio submission, it's only digital submission. Again, the submissions are not open yet. They will be open a bit later. And regarding that, I really encourage you to subscribe to our newsletter, where we're going to send you more information about the different dates and different sessions if you have questions later on. But essentially, please don't attach any videos, game files directly. Just link to a streaming site, file sharing portal. Google Drive is fine, Dropbox, etc. Um, in your email, just write the proper title. It's going to go in my inbox with a different filter. And just write your name, your phone number, the email you're using with your portfolio. And on the side, you also need to do your admission with the college. So we'll make sure that we have both files for you as well. In terms of the program teachers, like I mentioned, we are really there to support your success. We're really excited about the games that you're going to be developing, and as such, all of us are actually developers, right? We are teaching at night, but generally we work during the day as well. Some of us are working for indie companies or having their own companies, actually. Some of us are working for bigger studios as well. But really, no matter the studios where we're working at the moment, it's really important for us to let you succeed in specifically for in the game development, I would say. Some of graduates, you might have heard of King of the Hat. This is one of our big success story. They graduated from the program and they launched their games just afterwards with their company called Business Corp Incorporated. Um, there's missing ink in these more acronyms. But yeah, King of the Hat was quite a hit on the Discord platform and store, and now they're transitioning to Steam as well. So we're really happy to see that things are going really well for them. We also have Asan, that is one of our graduate that started his own studio aside that is called Snowtail Games. So he's actually working on another company, but aside he's working on Dark Chapters. He was presented the Mega last year and actually won an award with his game. So you might know about him if you were there last year. And of course, our graduates also got hired in different companies, bigger studios, smaller studios. Like I said, our focus is on indie development, but it doesn't mean that it's the skills won't be directly transmitted to what is needed by larger studios, right? So, for some examples, Utopia, Ludic, Stockholm Syndrome, Litica, Gameloft, Ubisoft, Square Enix, Ludia. Those are few examples of the studios where our graduates are, and I'm pretty sure I'm missing a lot as well. I don't think we'll have much time today to take a look at that, but I really encourage you, if you want to play some of the games developed by our alumni from the 2020 cohort. We have a website, the IVGD Grad Expo 2020. So it's ivgd2020.myportfolio.com. It's essentially a digital vernissage because, of course, of the pandemic, we wanted to still broadcast the work of our students. So we created the website. You can play with most of the games. I think most of them are downloadable. Especially if I can give you some recommendation on the sheer amount of work, I will say, of those two projects. It will be Service Bound first, which is a puzzle game, quirky with the funny humor and with inspiration from like Steven Sausage Roll, Baba Is You, Undertale. It's really its own genre. It's really fitting, I feel, in the indie ecosystem. It's really nice. It's a really fun game. It takes a while. It's a really hard puzzle game. It takes a while to complete, like a few hours actually. So if you want to have a good puzzle challenge, you like puzzle games, I will recommend you looking at that. And otherwise, Windigger is a action platformer game where the wind is actually affecting your movement and you're progressing through this Dune-esque world, post-apocalyptic, where you're trying to survive and scavenging through ruins. It's really, really a great project as well. And like I mentioned, the reason I'm mentioning those two projects is that they're quite lengthy. Those two student teams really worked hard on having not just a prototype, but really a large vertical slice of a game. So if you're interested into playing those, of course, you can go on ivgg2020.myportfolio.com and take a look at it. And of course, there's many other projects that you'll be able to play with as well. If you have more questions, of course, after this presentation, or if you're looking at the presentation recorded, don't hesitate sending me directly your questions if it's about the program. So my email is right here. Otherwise, I'll be there today and tomorrow, of course, on the Pine platform for the Mega Migs. So if you have any questions, just come to our booth, and we'll be happy to answer. And otherwise, if you have questions specifically regarding admission or your academic profile, you need to send an email to AEC at Dawson College. I I can answer most of those, but they have a deeper knowledge of I will say the admission processes and such. I'm working mostly on the program side. If you want to have more info on the application process specifically, you can visit our website, dawsoncollege.qc.ca/AEC. We also have a page specific under the AEC page for the Independent Video Game Design Program. So really don't hesitate. If you have any questions, we're really open for any of those as well. Thank you very much. I'll be taking questions if there's any. Thank you,
And
everyone, for your time for this afternoon. I wish you a good Mega Migs. And again, don't hesitate to contact us if you have any questions. Thank you very much. Have a great day.